In the summer of 1900, a group of Greek sponge divers were caught in a storm near a small island called Antikythera in the waters between Crete and mainland Greece. They sheltered, waited, and when the weather broke, descended to the seafloor to work. At a depth of 60 meters, one of the divers found something he could not explain. Lying among the wreckage of a Roman cargo ship that had sunk 2,000 years earlier, alongside marble statues, bronze figures, glassware, and jewelry, was a lump of corroded bronze, roughly the size of a shoebox. It had gears inside, dozens of them, fused together by 2 millennia of salt water, interlocked at angles that made no sense to anyone looking at them. The divers brought it up. It sat in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens for decades, while scholars argued about what it was. Nobody guessed the truth, because the truth was impossible. What the divers had found was a machine. Specifically, it was a hand-cranked analog computer, the most complex mechanical device known to exist from the ancient world, more sophisticated than anything else built by human hands for at least the next 1,000 years. It was made sometime between 150 and 60 BC. It had at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, 17 different axles, and 8 display pointers. Its front face showed the position of the sun and moon in the sky. A rotating ball, half silver and half black, displayed the current phase of the moon. Inscriptions listed which stars rose and set on any given date of the year. And hidden inside its corroded bronze body, invisible to anyone who did not know to look, inscribed in letters 2 millimeters tall on surfaces that had not seen light since before the birth of Christ, was a complete instruction manual. The back of the device was stranger still. 2 large spiral dials tracked time across scales no human lifetime could witness. One followed 235 lunar months, 19 solar years, through a cycle so precise that it allowed the user to predict the moment of any solar or lunar eclipse years in advance. The other tracked a larger cycle, 18 years and 223 months, known today as the Saros cycle, the heartbeat of the relationship between Earth, Moon, and Sun. And at the bottom right, almost as an afterthought, a smaller dial tracked something else entirely. 4 years, the Olympic cycle. A single device that could tell you where the planets were, when the next eclipse would occur, and which athletic festival was coming up, operated by turning a handle, like winding a clock. Nobody in the 19th century believed such a thing could exist. Nobody in the 20th century fully understood it. And it was not until the 21st century, when machines learned to see what human eyes had missed for 2 millennia, that its deepest secrets finally gave way. The first breakthrough came in 2005. A team of researchers from the Antikythera Mechanism Research Project brought a technology called microfocus X-ray computed tomography to bear on the 82 surviving fragments. CT scanning had been used in medicine for decades. Applied to a corroded ancient artifact, it produced something extraordinary. 3-dimensional images of the interior of the mechanism, layer by layer, revealing the gear structure in detail that no amount of surface examination could have achieved. What the CT scans showed doubled the number of deciphered inscriptions. Inside the mechanism, not on its surface, not visible to any previous researcher, were thousands of letters and numbers engraved into the bronze with a precision that still astonishes engineers today. The text described the motions of all 5 planets known to antiquity: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. It described how they were displayed on the front face. It described the mechanism's origins, its functions, its calendar systems. The device, the inscriptions made clear, was a model of the cosmos, not a metaphor for the cosmos, not a symbol of it, a working, mechanical, hand-cranked model of the cosmos itself. The sun, the moon, the 5 planets, the stars, the eclipse cycles, the Olympic calendar, all turning together in their true relationships, driven by a single input, a single turn of a handle. An ancient Greek astronomical compendium of staggering ambition was how Professor Tony Freeth of University College London described it. His team spent years building the first reconstruction that matched all the physical evidence, the first model of the mechanism's front face that accounted for all the inscriptions simultaneously. Published in Scientific Reports in March 2021, their reconstruction revealed something nobody had managed before: a complete display of the ancient Greek cosmos, with 9 outputs driven by a single gear train: Moon, nodes, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Date, carried on nested tubes with arms supporting concentric rings, all moving together. Solving this complex 3D puzzle, Freeth wrote, reveals a creation of genius, combining cycles from Babylonian astronomy, mathematics from Plato's Academy, and ancient Greek astronomical theories. 3 different intellectual traditions fused into a single machine by someone whose name we do not know. Then, in June 2024, came an intervention from the strangest possible direction. The Antikythera mechanism has a calendar ring, a circular band of bronze that once sat on the front face of the device, allowing the user to track the passage of days. The ring is broken. Only fragments survive. And for decades, researchers had disagreed on one fundamental question: how many holes did the ring originally have? The number matters enormously. 365 holes would mean the ring tracked the Egyptian solar calendar, 365 days per year. 354 holes would mean it tracked the Greek lunar calendar, 354 days per year, 12 months of the moon. The difference between the two is a statement about whose cosmos the mechanism was modeling, whose time it was keeping. Professor Graham Wone of the University of Glasgow had spent his career studying something entirely different: gravitational waves, the ripples in space-time produced when black holes collide, when neutron stars spiral into each other at the far edges of the universe. To detect these events, Wone's field had developed statistical tools of extraordinary sensitivity, methods designed to find signals buried in noise, patterns concealed inside apparent randomness. Someone showed him the data from the Antikythera calendar ring, the surviving holes, their positions, their spacing. And Wone saw the same problem he had spent decades solving in a different context: a signal, partially destroyed, that needed to be reconstructed from fragments. He applied Bayesian analysis, a probabilistic framework that quantifies uncertainty based on incomplete evidence, to the surviving holes. His colleague, Dr. Joseph Bailey, adapted techniques from the LIGO gravitational wave detectors, the most sensitive measuring instruments ever built by human hands, to analyze the ring's geometry. The result, published in the Horological Journal in July 2024, was unambiguous. The calendar ring almost certainly had 354 or 355 holes, corresponding to the Greek lunar calendar. The probability of 354 holes was hundreds of times greater than the probability of 365. The mechanism was not tracking the Egyptian year. It was tracking the moon. The precision of the original craftsman, the analysis revealed, was extraordinary. The average variation in hole placement across the ring was 0.028 millimeters, less than the width of a human hair, maintained consistently across hundreds of precisely punched holes, by hand, in bronze, 2,000 years ago. It's a neat symmetry, Professor Wone said, that we've adapted techniques we use to study the universe today to understand more about a mechanism that helped people keep track of the heavens nearly 2 millennia ago. Tools built to detect the collision of black holes, used to read the work of a Greek craftsman whose name has been lost, finding, in the spacing of holes in a corroded ring, the signature of the moon. There is a question that the mechanism raises, and that no amount of decipherment has answered. Ancient writers offer hints. Cicero described a device made by Archimedes in the 3rd century BC, a bronze sphere that modeled the motions of the heavens. Posidonius, a philosopher who had a workshop in Rhodes, was said to have built something similar in the 1st century BC. The calendar in the mechanism includes month names used in Corinth and its colonies, and lists athletic festivals held on Rhodes. But no ancient source mentions a device that matches the Antikythera mechanism specifically. One machine of impossible sophistication carrying the knowledge of Babylon and Athens and Rhodes and the mathematics of the moon inside it. And then the sea for 2,000 years, and silence. The inscriptions on the back cover of the mechanism, its most extensive text, the user manual, have still only been partially decoded. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute for the History of Science have been working specifically on these texts for years. What remains unread may contain answers about the device's origin, its intended owner, the tradition of knowledge it represented. Because that is the deepest question the mechanism poses. Not how it was built, not what it calculated, but what it was part of. Because a machine this complex is not an accident. It is not a single genius working alone. It is the product of a tradition, generations of accumulated knowledge, passed between teachers and students, workshops and academies, across the centuries of the Hellenistic world. And that tradition disappeared. Whatever school produced this device, whatever chain of knowledge connected Babylon's astronomical records to the bronze gears in that Roman shipwreck, it was severed. No similar machine appears in the historical record for over 1,000 years. The knowledge that built it either died with the people who held it, or was lost in the great destruction of ancient libraries, or passed into forms we no longer recognize. The mechanism is not just an artifact. It is a message from a world that knew more than we gave it credit for, sent forward through 2,000 years of ocean and silence, waiting for machines sophisticated enough to read it.